Somewhere beneath a quiet field in Cambridgeshire, England, a field so unremarkable that farmers have been ploughing it for centuries, an entire Roman city has been sitting in the dark. Streets, forges, kilns, villas, a fully functioning urban settlement that nobody in the modern world knew existed until 2 years ago, and it wasn't found by some legendary archaeologist with a team of hundreds working for decades. It was accidentally uncovered during a routine survey for a solar farm. A solar panel project handed historians one of the most significant Roman discoveries in Britain in decades. But here's what's keeping archaeologists up at night. This city, according to every map, every model, every academic theory, it shouldn't be there. And when you understand why they're saying that, you'll realize that everything you were taught about Roman Britain was only half the story, because this isn't the only hidden city beneath England's soil. There are more, and they're surfacing right now. From a quiet field in Cambridgeshire, to a cricket pitch in Carlisle, to a basement in London's financial district, the Roman world is clawing its way back to the surface. One leading archaeologist described what they're finding as reshaping our entire understanding of Roman Britain. Stay with me. The ground beneath you is never going to feel the same again. Let's start with what they actually found, because the scale of this discovery is genuinely hard to process without a moment to picture it. South of a small village called Great Staunton in Cambridgeshire, a company called AOC Archaeology was running a standard geophysical survey in 2022 and 2023, the kind of scan you do before building a solar farm. Electromagnetic sensors reading anomalies in the soil. Routine work, boring work. They were expecting to find absolutely nothing. And then the data came back. Everyone in that room went completely and utterly silent. The buried features stretched across 31 full hectares. That is the equivalent of 43 football pitches of hidden Roman civilization sitting silently underground. Just 30 centimetres below a working English farm field, a planned, organised urban footprint with gravel roads, forge complexes, pottery kilns, a villa and residential zones. Not scattered Roman debris, not a way station, a full industrial town, fully functional and completely unknown to the modern world until 2 years ago. When Historic England announced the discovery in September 2024, Chief Executive Duncan Wilson said it gave a remarkable insight into Roman life in the east of England. But Councillor Lorna Dupre of Cambridgeshire County Council said something that should have made every single headline in the country. She said they were surprised by the scale and complexity of this well-established town. Surprised. A senior official in 2024 genuinely surprised that an entire Roman town was sitting undetected in her county. Now, here's the detail that separates this discovery from just another Roman dig. It's the part that almost every news article completely missed. Look at the shape of this settlement on the survey maps. Most Roman towns follow a rigid grid of straight lines and right angles. Roman order was always stamped onto the landscape, controlled, geometric, deliberate. But this town doesn't do any of that. This town doesn't do that. It curves, it bends, it follows a layout that archaeologists immediately recognize as pre-Roman in origin. The working theory right now, and this is a real active academic debate, is that this wasn't a Roman city at all to begin with. It was a native British Iron Age community, and Rome didn't conquer it. Rome absorbed it. The locals chose to become Roman. They adopted Roman kilns, Roman forges, Roman tableware, Roman roads, because being connected to the Roman economic world was simply more profitable than resisting it. That's not a small footnote. That's a complete rewrite of how Roman civilization actually spread through Britain, and the artifacts bear it out. When archaeologists put trowels in the ground in June 2024, they pulled out coins, iron tools, glass, and fragments of Samian ware. That glossy, blood-red Roman tableware imported all the way from Gaul in modern-day France. You don't find Samian ware in backwater settlements. You find it in places that mattered. The solar farm that started all of this cancelled. The developers changed their entire project when they realized what was underneath the ground. This 31-hectare site is now a scheduled monument, officially one of the most protected pieces of land in England. Rome just beat solar power. And the excavation continues. But hold that image of a hidden city in your head. Because what's happening in Carlisle right now makes the Cambridgeshire discovery look like a warm-up act under a cricket pitch. I'm completely serious. Under the grounds of Carlisle Cricket Club, archaeologists have been carefully peeling back layers since 2021. They've been excavating Luguvalium, a Roman cavalry fort sitting just inside Hadrian's Wall, the 73-mile military barrier that marked the absolute edge of the known Roman world. And in 2023, in the ancient drainage channel of a massive Roman bathhouse, a volunteer reached into the mud and pulled out something that left the entire team speechless. A small, soft, purple lump. Nobody in that trench knew what they were looking at. They sent it to the British Geological Survey, then to Newcastle University's Wolfson Archaeology Lab, where scientists ran infrared spectroscopy and X-ray computed tomography on it. The same technology used to analyze ancient Egyptian mummies without ever unwrapping them. The results came back. And this is where the story becomes almost impossible to believe. It was Tyrian Purple, the single most expensive substance in the entire ancient world, found in a drain in northern England under a cricket pitch. To understand why that matters, you need to know what Tyrian Purple actually was and why it terrified people. It came from sea snails, thousands of them, harvested from the eastern Mediterranean coast and slowly crushed for their pigment. About 12,000 snails were needed to produce less than 2 grams of dye. The process was so revolting that production facilities had to be kept outside city walls. Ancient Roman sources record it cost 3 times the price of gold by weight. 3 times the price of gold. The color was so tightly controlled that by the 4th century AD, only the emperor himself could legally wear it. This was the color of the divine, the color of absolute earthly power, reserved for one man in the entire world. And a chunk of it, raw, unused, mixed with beeswax, clearly paint pigment prepared for decorating a wall, turned up in a drain in Carlisle. Not in Rome, not in Pompeii, not in the grand villas of the Rhine frontier, in a drain in Carlisle. The only solid sample of unused Tyrian Purple ever recovered anywhere in the entire former Roman Empire. So who put it there? That is the question electrifying academic circles right now. And the answer points to one of the most powerful men in human history, Septimius Severus, Roman emperor from AD 193 to 211, born in what is now Libya in North Africa. A man who climbed through the brutal Roman military machine all the way to become absolute master of the world. In AD 208, he came personally to Britain to lead campaigns against the Caledonian tribes pressing south of Hadrian's Wall. He didn't send a general. He came himself, aged 63, visibly ill, but completely and utterly determined, and he brought everything with him, his wife, the Empress Julia Domna, his sons Caracalla and Geta, who would eventually murder each other fighting for the throne. his entire imperial administration, the nerve center of the Roman Empire, uprooted from Rome and transplanted to the edge of the known world in northern Britain. Now, pile up the evidence coming out of that Carlisle cricket pitch. An inscription stone dedicated to Empress Julia Domna, found right there in the ruins, imperial stamped tiles, giant fragments of statuary, a bathhouse built in a distinctly North African architectural style, the design of Severus's home culture, reproduced thousands of miles from home. An ancient text called the Historia Augusta directly states that Septimius Severus was in Carlisle, and now there is Tyrian Purple in the drain of his bathhouse. The theory gaining serious traction among archaeologists is that Severus didn't just pass through Carlisle, he governed the entire Roman Empire from here, one of the most powerful rulers in the ancient world, directing affairs stretching from Scotland to Egypt to Mesopotamia, operating from the banks of the River Eden in Cumbria. The Roman Carlisle project won Current Archaeology's Research Project of the Year and was featured on BBC Two's Digging for Britain. What they're uncovering isn't just a bathhouse. It might be an imperial palace hiding in plain sight under a cricket pitch that almost nobody in the world has ever heard of. But there's a third discovery, and this one might be the most personally disorienting, because it sits beneath a city that millions of people walk through every single day. February 2025. Workers begin demolition in the basement of a building at 85 Gracechurch Street, right in the heart of London's financial district, the square mile of glass towers and banking headquarters that forms the beating heart of the modern British economy. And 4 meters down, underneath centuries of London's accumulated layers, the demolition crew hits something solid and ancient. Flint walls, ragstone foundations, masonry over a meter thick, nearly 2,000 years old. Sitting undisturbed beneath one of the most valuable pieces of real estate on the planet, the Museum of London Archaeology sent in their team. What they identified stopped the entire 32-story skyscraper project in its tracks. They had found London's first Roman basilica, the civic heart of Londinium, the Roman city that would eventually become modern London, built between AD 78 and 84, just decades after Rome invaded Britain. The basilica was the Roman equivalent of a combined town hall, law court, and stock exchange, all in one monumental building. It was where the city's fate was decided, where merchants resolved disputes, where officials issued edicts, where the machinery of empire met the daily life of ordinary people. Sophie Jackson of Mola called it one of the most significant discoveries in years. Andrew Henderson Schwartz put it simply, it's the beating heart of the city, and it had been sitting 13 feet beneath some of the most expensive real estate on Earth, completely unknown this whole time. The building developers are now redesigning the skyscraper lobby to preserve the Roman masonry in place. The public will be able to literally walk across it. In a few years, bankers and commuters will step across a 2,000-year-old Roman floor on their way to get coffee. London didn't erase Rome. London grew directly on top of it, and Rome never truly left. Now, step back, because Cambridgeshire, Carlisle, and London aren't 3 isolated stories. They are a pattern, and that pattern is genuinely shaking the field of Roman archaeology to its foundations. For decades, the accepted view was that Roman influence in Britain was concentrated in the southeast, in the big garrison towns and the colonia and the civitas capitals. Roman influence was supposed to thin and fade as you moved north and west into the Celtic countryside beyond military zones. The official archaeological map of Roman Britain had around 100 significant settlements. That map is now considered radically incomplete. The Cambridgeshire town sits precisely where Roman urban culture was supposed to fade out. It didn't fade, it thrived. With industrial infrastructure, imported luxury goods, and active trade connections reaching all the way across the English Channel. The settlement was lying just 30 centimetres below the surface, perfectly preserved under farmland that was never built upon. There are almost certainly dozens of similar settlements out there, waiting in fields across England to be found. The technology finding them, aerial photography, LiDAR laser surveys, ground-penetrating radar, has only been deployed systematically across Britain in the last 15 to 20 years. Scholars studying Roman small towns have noted for years that new examples keep emerging constantly, and that the vast majority of even the known sites have never been fully excavated. We don't actually know what lies beneath most of Roman Britain. We have glimpses, outlines in crop marks, anomalies in sensor data, stonework in builders' basements, and each time someone looks properly at the ground, there is always more than anyone expected. The Roman occupation of Britain lasted nearly 400 years, from AD 43 to around AD 410. 4 centuries of roads, towns, industry, trade, administration, art and religion stamped permanently into the English soil. And we have only just begun to scratch the actual surface of what is down there, literally. Every pipeline trench, every building demolition, every farmer's field waiting for a survey. Any one of them could be sitting on the next Great Staunton, on the next imperial complex. The Roman world didn't vanish when the legions left, it sank. And right now, in fields and cricket clubs and office basements across England, it is coming back up. Here is the thing that nobody wants to say out loud, but that every serious Roman archaeologist in Britain is thinking. We may have been telling the wrong story about Roman Britain for 2 full centuries. Not because the evidence wasn't there, but because we weren't looking in the right places, or with the right technology, or with enough curiosity to ask. The ground has been patient for 17 centuries. The stones beneath England have been quietly waiting all this time. They are not waiting anymore. The Roman world is coming back up, and it has a great deal to say. If this story made you want to grab a shovel and start digging, drop a comment, Cambridgeshire, Carlisle or London. Which one do you want the full deep dive on? Every one of these sites goes far deeper than anything we covered today. Subscribe, because the next discovery might be even bigger.